Howdy y'all, PorkNDogs here. If you've stuck around on this channel for a while, or have known me for years, you know that one video game series has stuck with me for all of my life. And that series is none other than the Sonic the Hedgehog series. With its colorful cast of characters, lush and beautiful worlds, and games dating back to 1991, everyone has their way of how they were introduced to the series. And today, I strive to share my history with you. So sit back, relax, and let us reminisce about the highs, the lows, and everything in between that has shaped my passion for this iconic franchise. This is my history with Sonic the Hedgehog. And before we dive in, a quick disclaimer. As this is a retelling of how I was exposed to the series, I'll be going over most Sonic games, but only briefly. I'll occasionally give my past and current thoughts on individual games and other material, but I won't be diving deep into any of them, as I feel they could be saved for future videos if y'all enjoy this one. And with that being said, let's jump right in. It all started around 2008, with me being young and going to my local dentist's office. They had a little small play area for the kids to occupy themselves, with toys, puzzles, and other things of that nature. Surprisingly enough though, they also had video game kiosks, similar to the ones they used to have at McDonald's at the time. I only remember two of the games, one of them being a wrestling WCW game on the N64, and the other, a colorful looking game on the GameCube that instantly caught my eye. A game that I truly wouldn't remember until years later, being named Sonic Heroes. Every time I went there, which wasn't very often, I would play it every single time and get maybe 10 minutes in before my mom would try and drag me out. If you know anything about Sonic Heroes levels, it's that they're so freaking long. And me being like 4 years old at the time definitely did not help. There was no way I was beating all that in time. After this, I saw that Sonic X was being shown on TV between 2009 and 2010 on my local CW channel. I still haven't gone through and watched the entire series, as I haven't finished Season 3. But from what I remember, it was very fun. And without knowing it back then, I was exposed to the retellings of the adventure games, and I remember really liking those stories more than any other ones from the show itself. Later, when I got my tonsils taken out, I was gifted a game from my newly owned Nintendo Wii from my brother and my grandma, being Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. Did I really say Super Smash Bros. Ultimate for the Wii, bro? Super Smash Bros. Brawl. I could finally see Sonic in all of his glory and just thought to myself, I can finally play as him. On the ride home from there, I would just constantly stare at the back of the box and imagine fighting and playing as all these characters. And when I booted up the game, I was disappointed to learn that Sonic was not unlocked from the get-go. I would constantly watch the Sonic reveal trailer through the data and movies section, being absolutely starstruck with his cool edge and the incredibly iconic live and learn, playing as he spin dashed through his opponents. It was truly unlike anything I had ever seen through video games up to that point. I would work to unlock him through the Subspace Emissary, and right when I was destined to face off against Taboo, I finally got him. I would play as him non-stop, usually pitting him against a CPU of Mario to make sure I always came up on top. I would shuffle through his voice lines in the menu, listening to his classic in all of its glory, and taking out all my opponents as Super Sonic was an experience like no other to 4-year-old me. It was clear from that point forward, I'd be a Sonic fan for life. After seeing him in Brawl, I convinced my parents to give me the Wii points, yeah, remember those, to buy every Sonic game possible on the Virtual Console at the time. They included Sonic 1, Genesis and Master System, Sonic 2, Genesis and Master System, Sonic 3, Sonic & Knuckles, Sonic Spinball, Sonic 3D Blast, and Sonic Chaos. And I played more of the Genesis games through Sonic's Ultimate Genesis collection through my brother's Xbox 360. And every time I played the Genesis games, I'd only get around to like the second and third level before it became too hard for me to beat, and I'd just leave it alone for a while. Another piece of external Sonic media I would come across, thanks to my parents, would be the Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog on DVD, through the 2 box sets released in 2007 and 2008. I loved the series for being a silly, slapstick-esque cartoon with unforgettable characters like Scratch and Grounder, and Coconuts, and Jalil White was a fun Sonic as well, giving him his cocky and impatient attitude, but still have a heart of gold. But the one character that shined the most out of all of them was undoubtedly Long John Baldry as Dr. Robotnik. He perfectly captures the pure insanity and egotism I love seeing in the character, which is also expressed through his exaggerated posing and expressions. This character alone is home to some of the most iconic scenes in the series' history, including
snooping as usual, I see. I'll have to give myself a promotion. No!
Yeah, it truly is amazing, huh? And after that, I would get the taste of my very first major Sonic game. And that game would be Sonic and the Secret Rings. Yeah, Sonic and the Secret Rings was my first big Sonic game that I owned. The game itself was panned for being mediocre at the time, and yeah, even back then, I kinda felt that. But I still enjoyed the game though, embracing all the sights like being in distant deserts, palaces. I really liked the set pieces in some of the levels. The one that stuck out to me was the one where you ride a piece of wood on a waterfall in the Wicked Wild. And I also enjoyed a bit of the story that I could see, because as we already established, I was young and pretty bad at games. The next game I would get would be the direct sequel to Secret Rings, Sonic and the Black Knight. I saw the cover of Sonic with a sword and just knew I had to get it. Come on now, even to this day, nothing is as raw as Sonic with a sword. I even knew back then that this game was a massive step up in almost every department. The visuals are absolutely stunning for a Wii game. The controls felt better and more responsive, and the music, oh the music! Here, let me show a quick reel of this game's music. This game's storyline is one of my favorites in the series. I even knew that back then. And even now, I love how Sonic himself is written. It's so much harder knowing later that this would be Jason Griffith's last game as Sonic. I would play a little bit of Sonic Story and Sonic Adventure on the 360 when it released, but I never picked it back up until later on during the pandemic. I later picked up Sonic 4 Episode 1 on WiiWare, and honestly, I didn't really think much of it. It was a fine enough time waster for me, but I never ended up finishing this game or its sequel due to pure apathy for the game, both back then and now. I also owned a few of the Sonic DS games that were out at the time, particularly Sonic Rush Adventure and Sonic Classic Collection. and I wouldn't pick up Rush Adventure's predecessor, Sonic Rush, until 2023, and I'm still trying to beat it to this day. Those bottomless pits are just unforgiving, man. At this point, I was exposed to the internet and saw all of these fan works and games about the series. Examples are Sonic Paradox's Sonic Shorts, old Flash Sonic games like Ultimate Flash Sonic, Final Fantasy Sonic X, fan games like Sonic 2 HD, Sonic Robo Blast 2, Sonic Before and After the sequel, and other fan series like Mega G-Wolf's Sonic Hack Showcase, Sonic Nazo Unleashed, Super Mario Bros. Z, and Bellina Productions' Sonic Zombies and Christmas with Sonic series. I was also exposed to early creepypastas related to Sonic, including the Tails Doll Curse, and, of course, Sonic.exe. ROM hacks were also big factors in expanding my horizons. Some of my favorites from back in the day were Sonic Eraser, Hana der Hedgehog, Sonic 3 Complete, and the S Factor, just to name a few. I still look fondly on those days back then, with a sense of nostalgia. And then later on, I finally got my hands on Sonic Unleashed for the Wii. Now, I haven't played the HD version until 2022, but even though, I would still watch the opening cutscene countless times, and watch all the HD cutscenes online to get the full story, as, you know, I was still bad at video games back then, but it actually became probably my favorite story in the franchise. And from what I played back then, it was still pretty solid. I loved walking through the Gaia temples with that beautiful music playing in the background. And actually, speaking of music, let's do another music reel. After Unleashed, I got my hands on the newest game at the time, Sonic Colors for the Wii. I actually had a pretty fun time with it, and got fairly close to beating it on my original Wii, but I didn't end up doing it till 2022. I really liked it back then, and now, while I'm not a big fan of the story's writing and jokes, the game itself can actually be pretty fun at points. It is a good replica of the Boost gameplay downsized to fit the Wii. This also marked the beginning of Roger Craig Smith's run as Sonic. Back then, I knew the voice was different, but I didn't really think much of it. I was still a little bit bummed out about it though. For my birthday in 2011, I got the present of a pre-order of Sonic Generations, and the Xbox Marketplace released a demo of the game featuring classic Sonic in Green Hill Zone. At this point, I'd hardly seen anything so next-gen. The graphics to me at the time were just beyond comprehension. I'd constantly play the demo and watch the countdown on the store page until the game's release on November 1st of that year. And actually playing through Generations was an experience like no other for me at the time. Playing an HD version of all those stages I'd played through just a few years prior, along with the information I gathered on the internet about all the other games, made me appreciate the experience so much more. Modern Sonic's gameplay was so fast-paced for me that I could hardly contain my excitement and got through 2/3 of the game when I got it on day 1. I finished the whole game in just 2 days, and almost 100% of the game afterwards. Now, I frequently revisit the game, but mostly just for the modern stages, with me testing how fast I can complete each level. And eventually, I'll set aside time to finally get all the red rings in the game. At this point, I had just got my own 360, and when I saw that the next 2 big Sonic games were going to be on Nintendo's new Wii U, I needed to get one. I got my Wii U and later Sonic Lost World whenever it released, and I thought it was just alright at the time. I remember liking the cutscenes back then, but now, they aren't really as good as I thought, along with the story. The gameplay itself, while unique, wasn't really what the series needed at the time in my opinion. I eventually played Sonic 4 Episode 2 on iOS whenever it released, and again, I thought it was just alright. A step up from the first one, but still nothing that rivaled the classics to me. And when the second Wii U game was released, Sonic Boom Rise of Lyric, I only ended up renting the game and spent only 1 day playing it, then I just returned it. During this time, I did grab a couple of the Archie comics, mostly online through the Sonic Comics app on iOS, and some from Free Comic Book Day of 2014. And while I haven't read much of the comic's long backlog of stories, small snippets I have seen have been some really good stuff. And I love the Freedom Fighter cast. I hope they could come back in some form one day. And also, shoutouts to this one panel from the first Sonic Universe comic. Still cracks me up today. I also got my hands on the first issue of the Mega Drive comic, which became a quick favorite of mine, as I was more used to the game's canon rather than the comics, due in part to the writing of Ian Flynn and the beautiful artwork of Tyson S., 2 series mainstays since their work on the comic. I watched a little bit of the Boom TV show, but the ungodly time slot of 6 AM show times and the failure of Boom somewhat drove me away from the series for a while. I started to drift away into other fandoms and games, like Five Nights at Freddy's at the time, and more prominently Undertale. Moving to those fandoms didn't entirely keep me away from Sonic, especially Undertale, as there are many alternate universes and songs based on the character, like Live in Lovania for Sonic Adventure Grounded, and even some based on the Sonic.exe creepypasta, like Execution for the different topic AU. But for the most part, I stayed somewhat away from the main series and its fandom, but that changed with the announcement of one game. With the announcement of Sonic Mania, I was more excited about that game than anything in my life. People behind the project were the ones responsible for some of my favorite fan works from back in the day. Christian Whitehead with the enhanced Sonic 1, 2, and CD ports, Simon Stealth Tomley of Headcanon, and especially T-Lopes with his original Sonic remixes, working on the official soundtrack of the game. It was stacking up to be the ultimate love letter to the fans of classic Sonic gameplay. And it was. While mostly using old stages, the pure love and attention to every detail when it came to the game was something never before seen. And it was something I truly loved, effectively roping me back into Sonic. And fun fact, I bought Sonic Mania 5 separate times throughout my life, and I do not regret it one bit. I also saw that there was a new 3D game coming out called Sonic Forces. Now, I wasn't too excited, but the idea of Eggman finally succeeding in taking over the world was an interesting concept, considering my slight dabble into the Archie comics. And when it came to playing the game, I rented it again for my Switch, and was able to beat it in a little over 3 hours, and I returned it the next day. I had no negative thoughts, or any positive ones really. It was just completely harmless in my opinion. However, it was obvious that the Boost formula gameplay was on its last leg. The Sonic team really needed to reinvent the gameplay formula if they wanted Sonic to succeed. It would be 4+ years until the next mainline Sonic game, and a global pandemic definitely added to that big pause, But in that time, I had more time than ever to catch up on the games I had rarely played from my earlier days. I was finally able to fully beat the adventure games, with Adventure 2 becoming one of my favorites. Played through all the classic games, finally got my hands on Sonic 06 and beat that. I finally fully beat Sonic Heroes, beat all the storybook games, and finally got my hands on the HD version of Sonic Unleashed, which I'm still working on to this day. Eventually, we'd get the first showings of the newest Sonic game, Sonic Frontiers, through IGN's hands-on review in June of 2022. And honestly, it looked kinda lackluster, while showing a little bit of promise. Over time, more promotional material was shown, some music tracks were shown, and prequel comics and animations were released. This was looking to be the most ambitious Sonic game of its era, and in Takashi Iizuka's own words, said it would lay the foundation for future entries as Sonic Adventure did. I'll leave the details of my thoughts for a future video, but I love this game, and I think it's an amazing step forward for the series, and it was just plainly the most fun I've had with a Sonic game since Mania. Special shoutouts to the music of the game, which heavily elevated the spectacle of those Titan boss fights. And the DLC overall makes the game a more well-rounded experience, especially the third DLC, giving the game the proper ending it truly deserved. For April Fools of 2023, the Sonic social media team gave us The Murder of Sonic the Hedgehog. And while visual novels aren't really my thing, or my cup of tea, the game was filled to the brim with charm and respect for these characters and their histories. It was lots of fun just seeing all these characters having a good time and, for the most part, not stopping Dr. Eggman's evil schemes. I also just kind of loved seeing the new outfits from the existing cast and some of these newer character designs that are in the game. And as of writing this video, I have not played Sonic Superstars and have played very little Sonic Dream Team. It's pretty okay from what I played. And with all this being said, here we are now. You may ask, what's next? And honestly, I'm not too sure. Maybe I'll go and finish Sonic X, pick up Sonic Sat AM and see what all that's about. Or even go and actually finish Sonic Unleashed. But what I do know is that regardless of where the series goes from here, or how old I get, or anything like that, just know that Sonic will always hold a very special place in my heart. It was the very first video game series that really stuck out to me. Of course, I was familiar with series like Mario, Donkey Kong, and other series from my brother, but Sonic was the one that I found eye-catching and cool and cutting edge, and above all else, just plain fun. Of course, I was oblivious to any of the backlash the series had during the dark age of games, or what games people considered good and bad and all that. But through all the experiences I had with this series, I wouldn't take it back for the world. Sonic just means the world to me. I have a very deep emotional connection with this character and his world, and I always want to see it succeed and do well, and I don't see myself going away from it anytime soon. And if you've made it this far in the video, thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. I've been working on this project since late October, and I wanted this video to mark a new beginning for my channel. This, right here, is something I want to keep doing. Fun videos like this, just talking about what I love. So if you want to see more content like this, let me know in the comments, hit that like button, and as always, subscribe if you just want to see more. Thank you again, have yourself a good one, and I'll catch y'all on the next one. Later.